Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double A Team Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Nagishi, and welcome to another episode on this Sunday evening, June 8th. And hope you're doing well on this Sunday evening. My co-host from the associate editor, I should say, of the sports blog, Awful Announcing, it is Ken Fang joining us. Good evening, and hope you had a wonderful week so far this week.
I did, and good to see you, Stephen, and a lot of things to talk about, so let's get right to it.
All right. So I went to a baseball game this afternoon, and I was at the Tigers-Cubs game. I happen to live in the Detroit area, not in Detroit, but just outside of Detroit. And I was really excited about this one because it was the Tigers and the Chicago Cubs, two teams that have are on top of the baseball right now record-wise. You know, the Tigers still have, I think, the best record in all of baseball this week. They won Friday night thanks to Tariq Skubal, the defending Cy Young Award winner, winning the game 3-1. Although I think that the Cubs may have lost that game because the third base coach, Quentin Berry, was not paying attention to Peter Crow Armstrong running past third base, and all of a sudden put a break on it, and he got thrown out at third base as he was trying to get back to it. Saturday, Cubs hit 5 home runs to win 6-1. And then, so this was a rubber game on Sunday, and I was really excited about this game. I was really, really looking forward to it. Unfortunately, the Cubs lost 4-0. Rookie Cade Horton was erratic in the first inning, giving up a 2-run double to Spencer Torkelson, I believe that was, and then gave up another, base hit, 2-run base hit in the fifth inning that ultimately was the difference in this ball game. I'm not trying to be upset about the Cubs losing 2 out of 3 to a team like Detroit. That was not the issue. But the issue in this one was the egregious balls and strikes that is being called by the home plate umpires in this series. And with the baseball umps, they're for the most part, I'm trying to be fair and honest here. I mean, some of them, they're not really good. They're not really good at their job. Let's be frank here. We had with Angel Hernandez being let go after years and years of, bad, poor performance that finally caught up with him. But that's usually an outlier, right? So on Saturday, on the game that the Cubs win, home plate umpire hittings were just so all over the game. This is from full disclosure. This is from a fan-sided Cubbies crib. So this is a Cubs website from fansided.com website. It was just, he was so bad. I can't tell you. He was all over the place, and so this was something that had been building up. Unfortunately, Saturday's balls and strikes completely terrible. Eddings actually was yelling something about I'm trying to do a good job or whatever he was yelling on Saturday, and he was just absolutely horrendous on Saturday, and then having the audacity to yell about about what he was saying. I'm going to play a clip here because this is so bad that you just have to wonder, forgive me for this. Here we go. This is what he was saying on Saturday. This is what he was caught saying. Here we go.
Okay.
What do you
want?
I'll get better, but I'm not going to hear from you. Okay.
You gotta be careful.
Well, this is a game that was not from the network, but he was actually caught saying What do you want me to do? I'm trying to do the
Right.
best, okay? So you could have heard him yelling about that. And then
Right.
this was Sunday on this was actually in the fifth inning, I believe, when Nico Horner, I believe this was fourth or fifth inning. On this is from a marquee sports network. I was actually attending the game. This is something that Nico Horner was called on third strike and then turned around to home plate umpire Derek Thomas and then was ejected immediately. You would think that something of a ejection would result in maybe using a profanity or something, but that's not the case. Listen to this. Oh, can you see it? Okay, here we go. Okay, so he was quoted as saying, "You're having a really bad day," and then 1 second later, he immediately throws him out. And then Craig Counsell, the manager, comes out and argues, and then he throws him out. And you know, I'm not going to say that umpire was the reason that the Cubs lost today. I mean, they struck out 12 times, which was an obscene amount of strikeouts coming from pitcher John Flaherty. So it was terrible all around, But the reason I'm bringing this up is that I understand that the human elements in sports is something that cannot be avoidable. But when you have an umps openly admitting that he's trying to do the best he can, but he is terrible at his job, and then a thin-skinned manager who throws him out on a sarcastic comments that was already building up from a day before. I'm just so flabbergasted that I spent almost $60 on a ticket, which included the processing fee, and I almost paid $35 for a parking near downtown today. And I'm not upset about that experience because the obscene amount of money that I had to spend to watch a game. Listen, I would do it all over again too. But the problem is, the news came this week that ABS is being finally implemented in 2026 season. Now, this was something that was implemented during spring training, as we witnessed during the spring training baseball. And it's finally happening, thankfully. But my beef is, Ken, is that the human element that we talk about, whether it's the umpires, the judge, the referee, whatever sports it is, there have been too many times where a call has been bungled because of an error, or in some cases, like Scott Foster, the old former NBA referee. He was involved in the gambling aspect of it, where he can alter a game based on his calls, and the money, is being, made or lose, especially nowadays. And quite frankly, that I am actually flabbergasted that the idea that ABS or a robo-ump might need to be implemented much sooner. And I know it's happening and we have to wait until next year, Ken. But to me, I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make or absolve the umps from, getting a pass, because it seems as though, the lack of accountability, and that's actually the theme of tonight's sports conversation. The lack of accountability is glaring in sports, and and I don't want that the ABS is going to suddenly change these umpires to become a better, referees or umpires. But to be honest, if we have these umps acting in this egregious manner, why is it that we don't have enough accountability from the MLB themselves to make sure that we don't have another Angel Hernandez's out there acting, wildly, and then somehow not get any, reprimand from their own actions, in my opinion.
Well, we've had this before with with Major League Baseball umpires. Joe West was one of the worst ones, and then
Yeah.
Angel Hernandez. Joe West was really infamous, I would say, for missing calls at first base and at the home plate. His strike zone was extremely wide. Um, excuse me. I have to say that I'm still skeptical about ABS. I'm always skeptical about AI and its takeover of everything. Robot umps aren't going to solve everything. Will they improve the strike zone? Probably, but there's still we're going to have to. It's like anything right now. You're still going to have to fact check it. You're still going to have to be able. I still don't think it's going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. Um, I still think that we'll still need some human element out there for umpires, especially. I mean, I know we have replay now, and we have, of course, all types of different review systems, whether it is Hawkeye and tennis, or of course the
Right.
soccer as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and also in the replay review in the NBA and the NFL, of course NHL too. But still, you're still relying on people to look after it. This is going to be the first time we're actually going to have artificial intelligence take over for calling balls and strikes. And there's still going to be some type of, I still think you're going to have to fact check it somehow. There's still going to have to be some people running it. There's going to be humans running it and still have to be able to run things properly. So I still don't, I'm still skeptical of it. I'm skeptical of all AI, Steven. I don't know if it's going to make the game better. Is it going to lead to more reviews? That's what I'm afraid of, because that now you're going to have. I know that minor league they're experimenting with the fact that you're going to have only 2 reviews of calling of ABS and ball and strikes, but I'm gonna have to say that maybe and I think that's a good thing, because you don't want to challenge each call. That's going to slow the game down. Major League Baseball has already done a great job in lowering the amount of time it is to run things out there, but still, I'm very skeptical of it. You're still going to have to fact check it, and you still have to make sure it runs right. And I'm sure there's still going to be tweaks to the system as we go along.
I hear you, Ken. I know there are a lot of people who are adamantly against, I should say, about the robo umps and stuff like that. But I don't understand that. Why people are so adamant, and then give like, again, as I said earlier, human elements a pass. It's just these umpires really never show any express contrition and or vow to do better. We have a system where I think the next day NBA usually releases a statement about if there are any missed calls. Unfortunately, that's not going to change any of the outcome of the game. But if there are any missed calls, I think usually the NBA releases a statement about if there was any missed calls about the foul or missed fouls the day after the game took place. And we've seen some games where the fouls were not called or called but should have never been called, and it's too late to overturn that. So it's unfortunately my problem is, again, was with the lack of the accountability. And look, I understand that the AI and everything else, it's not going to completely make everything's better. It could make things worse, especially in the world we live in, where AI is altering images, or creating weird photos that hinder our ability to determine what is right, wrong, what is equal, what is real. And I understand that to a degree, but if the human element isn't taking any accountability in all of it. Why aren't we, I'm not saying punish it, but why aren't there more accountability, or the situation where Angel Hernandez can be run out of the game and probably never to be heard again? But when we see more of that is my biggest problems. And if the humans aren't going to take accountability for themselves, then I say, you know what, let the robots do the job. And maybe not all of it. You don't want to have a robot umps in second base, third base, first base, or even parts of the outfield right by the pole side and everything. But that's my huge issue that I came from my own experience watching the game today. And I'm sure you probably can yourself watching a lot of games and write about it in the past as well as nowadays. You probably felt the same way as well.
Well, I'm a little bit more skeptical because AI is coming more into my industry of writing stories. So I'm also where I'm working. AI is coming in, so I'm very wary of it. I'm again, like I said, you have to fact check it, Stephen. Even though I know a lot of people are hoping that AI is going to be the thing to make things better. You still have to fact check it, and that's the thing that I'm worried about, is just trying to lend everything and allow it to take over. Yes, we're going to be seeing. It looks like we're going to be seeing it to help with reviews and first downs for football. The NFL says they want to be able to implement instead of having the chain gang for first down reviews, they're going to have a chip in the football. That is long overdue. I agree, because we can't keep. It's also subjective in trying to find the first down, especially on a tush push or a review. It's difficult to tell. So now you're going to have that. But again, we'll have to see how that works. They've tried to have the chip in the football working in an experimental basis, Stephen. That's how you spot the football. Is it where is that going to be? Which nose is going to be the one that for the technology for the first down? So as much as I love technology, as much as I love seeing advances, I still like a human element. And the balls and strikes, I think it's inevitable. It's going to happen. We have to have it. We just have to see how that goes. Is it going to be better than Angel Hernandez? Probably. But again, where is it? Where is the camera angle? Where is the angle? Is it going to be? Is it going to be uniform in all parts? That's the whole thing. Everything has to be corrected and totally I'm trying to say. I think you know what I'm trying to say, Stephen. But everything has to be corrected, and everything has to be perfect for that. It's all got to be put together properly. So everything. I mean, we always remember Quest Tech in baseball, Stephen. It was supposed to help with the balls and strikes, but it did. Players ended up hating it, so they took Quest Tech out of technology in baseball. So we'll see how that works. It's a wait and see. If it improves everything, great. But let's not try and have it take over everything. I think for where it's needed for reviews, for balls and strikes, it's not going to come over and replace fouls, because again, you still need the referees on the floor. You still need them on the calls. But as far as like offside in hockey, offside in soccer, whether the goal line technology, that is going to be helpful. Of course, it's still, we still have issues with it, especially in the Premier League. But hopefully, as technology gets better, we'll see it improve. But again, you still have to fact check it. I think that's the whole thing, is that you still need some humans. You have to develop it, but you also have humans to keep a watch over it too, Stephen.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the technology is coming. There's no doubt about that. And what it needs to do is that the people who are going to be using these technologies, they also have to have the discipline to make the right call, and it's going to aid the human element of it. Make sure that excuse me, there are clear guidelines as to what is a ball, what is a strike. That's number one. Does it have to touch the corner? Does it have to touch the line to a certain degree? And how many times can a player actually make that call? Is it 3 times during the game? Does it have to be a player? Does it have to come from the coaches? If it's late in the game or whatever, there has to be a clear guideline that needs to be done. There's already experiment being done in spring training as well as in the minor leagues. So whatever the data that they have gathered, they have to make sure that it is refined and the rule has to be in place so that there aren't any confusions. I remember there was a game between Tampa and Houston earlier this past week. Taylor Wells, or I forgot the name of the player, maybe somebody from Tampa, was actually tapping the head intentionally or unintentionally, and that caused the ref to get angry and then toss him out. And then the player from Tampa had to be withheld as he was continuously yelling and barking, kind of like the reminiscence of where George Brett was storming out of the dugout in the 80s because his pine tar was a little bit over the guideline. And you might remember that incident, right, Ken? If you're old enough to remember George Brett storming out of the dugout against the Billy Martin and the Yankees. That it was very similar to that. So, you don't want the players to, hold grudges or hold disdain towards, the umpires. And I get it; they're humans too. That's given. And I've made my share of mistakes as a human myself too. But if an umpire is showing that lack of respect or for the player as well as for the job that he's doing, in my opinion, hopefully this is going to weed out, bad umpires. Because if the umpire is always getting ABS checked and it turned out that his calls were wrong on multiple occasions, Ken, that has to lead to the overhaul of the umpires, the human ones, that is, who are always making bad calls and, always make sure that they're on their toes to a degree. That's what I would like to see more of it, and that's how I think the technology should be able to, help out, maybe weed out the bad umpires, who are basically benefiting from, being in a union or something like that.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree, Stephen. And the whole thing is that everything will have to be uniformly adopted, properly prepared, and everything's going to have to be uniform because, every park is different. All the angles are different. So they're just going to have to find a way to properly have everything collaborated. So that's the main thing that I'm worried about, Stephen, because it's not like an antiseptic situation where in a TV studio where everything can be properly applied. It's all going to be outdoors or in a dome, and conditions are all going to be different. So everything has to be properly prepared and be ready. Again, is there going to have to be someone in each park to do this, or they're going to do this as they do with some with like the War Room in Toronto in the NHL with the reviews, someone over there on the uniform office. So how it's probably going to be that type of situation, but I think someone is going to have to be at each park too to make sure everything is properly calibrated, which is what I've been trying to think about the calibrated. I've been thinking about that. It's been bothering me all show, Stephen. Calibrate. Everything has to be properly calibrated.
Without a doubt, hopefully, my experience, look, it was just one of those things. It's unfortunate. Again, the umpires weren't the main reasons why the Cubs lost today, but they certainly made my experience a very, very, sickening one to a degree, kind of sickens to my stomach. And hopefully that these types of situations will be eliminated through ABS in 2026. Whether the system gets refined and you said it calibrated and it also leads to the the removal of umpires who are just terrible at their job, more or less. So, that's my story at the end of the day. So let's move on to another topic, Ken. The NBA Finals takes place tonight later, of course, in about a half an hour on ABC. Apparently, ESPN is producing the game remotely due to the tornado warning in OKC. We know that with the movies like Twisters and the remake of it, that Oklahoma is a hotbed for tornado activities. A lot of damages, a lot of lives being lost, etc. We know the history, so obviously this is not to be taken lightly at all and everything. But overall, the game itself, first game, it was a very competitive game. Tyrese Halliburton with a game-winning shot with less than 4 seconds away. OKC once again, they blew a big lead, just like they did against the Denver Nuggets, I believe, in the Western Conference semifinals. OKC tends to kind of slip up, despite their immense talent, that they just don't have the killer instinct or their ability to finish, despite, again, the immense amount of talent that they have on their roster. But I want your opinion on the game one with the ESPN coverage. There was no Larry O'Brien Trophy logo in the middle of the Paycor Center in OKC. Somebody also pointed out that ESPN television on the screen, they didn't also have the NBA Finals or being mentioned, all that kind of stuff.
Well, it was a very small logo. It was a very small logo on their scoreboard.
Right. But do you agree with the idea that maybe NBA isn't taking this finals because it's two small market teams that seriously at all, or do you feel that that's just all about nothing in your opinion? It's just a honest mistake.
Well, I will say, in regards to ESPN's coverage of the finals, they don't give it a big event feel. It feels like a regular Wednesday night regular season game.
And that's the consensus among the people. Yes.
Yeah. When NBC had carried the finals, it was always a big event. It was always a special open. Bob Costas or Marv Albert would narrate the opening. Of course, you had the Chicago Bulls always in most of those finals, and then when it became Kobe and the Los Angeles Lakers, they easily transitioned to making them the focus of the finals. But I have to say, Stephen, ESPN, ever since they took over the NBA Finals, the NBA contract back in 2002, they just don't. And I know they feel it's an important, because otherwise if they wouldn't have signed a new 11-year contract that takes effect next year. But they don't treat you can tell how they treat Monday Night Football. It's a big event. They have Joe Buck and they have Troy Aikman. They properly finally made that into something that it's a big property for them, and they're going to treat it as such because they're going to have the Super Bowl in a couple of years. So they're going to treat that properly. But the NBA Finals, I watched part of that. I didn't watch the whole thing, Steven. It just I'm not a big NBA fan, so I don't really watch the finals. I watch every once in a while. I also watch halftime, because one of the issues is that we at Awful Announcing have noticed that the halftime coverage is just completely awful. They don't really. This game one at least was 3 minutes, at least longer. Usually, in the last few seasons, they have 30-second segments and then just throw it to commercial, and the commercials dominate the halftime. So that's been a problem. And I think now that the NBA is coming in next season, that'll stop. But I also think that the fact that ESPN doesn't give the finals special treatment, it's another event. It just fills time on the ABC primetime roster. It just goes on for like 2.5 hours and then leaves. So they get off the air very quickly so they can get to the local news in the East and Central time zones. And I think that's been my issue with the ESPN ever since they took over the NBA. They don't make it exciting to watch. They put too much of Stephen A. Smith, especially last year when the Knicks were in the Eastern Conference Finals. It was just ridiculous. No, I just can't. Actually, not the Eastern Conference Final. They got to the semifinals and lost to Indiana like they did this year. But it's just, I just can't take. I don't like ESPN's coverage. I kind of wish that that NBC could have gotten a piece of the finals. It's not going to happen. ESPN is going to carry the finals for the next 11 years. We have to put up with this crap. So, I mean, they care about sports broadcasting, obviously, Stephen, because they carry sports is 24/7. But there's just it's just the treatment of properties. It's like the NFL big gets good treatment. College football gets good treatment. Same for the women's college NCAA basketball tournament, and also just the just completed softball tournament. They get good treatment, but the NBA, I just don't understand. It's like an afterthought to them. And you would think that if you're paying billions of dollars, you would treat it a little bit better. Same with the NHL. I think the NHL is just an afterthought to them. They don't treat the
Right.
NHL as well as they could. So it's like those two are just filling time for them, and that's all they care about.
Right. I'm glad you brought up about NHL, Ken, because I was listening to a local radio station here in Detroit, 97.1 The Ticket. Mike Valenti, the afternoon host, was actually talking about why there is a lack of, interest in the Stanley Cup. Now, I think this is a lot to do with the league, and I think the consensus, or at least the common theme here, Ken, is that both the NHL and the NBA aren't taking this finals or the Stanley Cup finals seriously enough, in my opinion. For what it is with the NHL Stanley Cup, they historically have not done a real good job marketing the game or the players themselves for Stanley Cup final. And a lot of people are just trying to wonder, who are the star players and why aren't, the league isn't doing enough to promote the team, the player, or the game itself, and brought up a historical example about in the past they always mention about the player and the team and their old ESPN coverage when they talk about the upcoming games, etc., etc. But we're not seeing a lot of that in the current the TNT True TV ordeal. And the NBA, again, you said it. The finals seems like another game on Wednesday or Friday night, kind of feeling. The lack of Larry O'Brien Trophy. They said something about that big trophy logo in the middle of the arena floor. It was causing slippage or whatever the heck it was that was being mentioned. Well, what about the NBA Cup where they put like a super colorful floor, decorated and all that kind of stuff, right? They decorate that like as if it's like the Boise State football field, as if, And so I don't understand what the difference is, and yet, it seems as though neither league is doing a good job promoting their own brand product. And I've also saw this somewhere online that the NBA is like the only league where former players like to crap on the current version of the players in the league itself. So maybe that discourse isn't also helping either. What do you think, Ken?
Well, I think that I think if ESPN wants to be a better partner, and they do a good job in marketing itself. They do a great job in marketing Stephen A. Smith, because Stephen A. Smith is everywhere. Okay, we can't get rid of
and now Pat McAfee is starting to reach that level too, in my opinion.
But they don't seem to do it with the NBA. I don't get that. I really don't understand. It's like, yes, there are promos for the NBA finals, but they'll just mention the teams. They won't mention SGA. They won't mention Tyrese Halliburton. They won't mention Rick Carlisle. They just say NBA finals, Indiana, Oklahoma City, tomorrow night, 8:30. Who are the players? As you mentioned, who are the players? I give TNT more credit because they at least focus on the players and they focus. They'll mention Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, Brad Marchand. They'll talk about Connor Verhaeghe. They'll put them in the promos, but they don't do that. And I think also too because TNT doesn't have the coverage anymore like it used to. Cable isn't as prevalent as it used to be. So I think that's another thing. But I do think that the NBA, with the fact is that there's no splashing of it. Remember back in the 90s, Stephen, we had it said the NBA finals on the floor. It was like whatever year it was, NBA finals, 1990 NBA finals. It was on the floor. And you also mentioned the logo of the Larry O'Brien trophy. It would be there. And there's some people say, oh, I don't think it should be there. Well, whenever we watched the Final Four, wherever we watched the NCAA tournament, Stephen, then we saw those special floors and we saw everything being splashed about NCAA tournament. It's either there for the men's or the women's tournament, and those special floors are always there. We know it's an NCAA tournament. As far as the NBA playoffs are concerned, the only thing that we see is that, especially on those side panels, those advertisements where those advertisements are, those are the only things that we could see that's an NBA Finals game. Otherwise, when you look at the floors, as you mentioned, on Paycom Arena over in Oklahoma City, or when they go back to Gamebridge Fieldhouse in Indiana, there's no special marking on the floor. We may see an AI generated ad that ESPN puts on the floor to show there's an ad, but other than that, there's nothing. And I think that you're right. There's no real marketing by ESPN. There's no real marketing by the NBA, and that really hurts them. And even though the ratings are down, it's just I think it's because of the markets. They're too small markets. I don't think that this is going to sound alarm bells in the NBA office because they're going to make they're going to be making a lot more money next year. But I think starting next season, I think the NBA's got to start to really do a better job in marketing the finals and tell ABC and tell Disney, say, hey, look, give this a big event feel. If I'm Adam Silver, I have a meeting with Bob Iger of Disney and the president of ESPN, Jimmy Pitaro, and say, hey, look, guys, you're doing a bad job with our league. If this were the Super Bowl, I'm sure that we'd be seeing all types of promos for on ESPN and ABC and using all of their networks. That's exactly what they should be doing. One thing that NBC does well with the Olympics, Stephen, is that they, on all of their networks on NBC Universal, that the Olympics are coming. There's promos on every single one of their 35 cable networks. ESPN doesn't do this. I don't see any promos on their other networks. I don't see promos on FX. I don't see promos on FXX on their other channels. So I think they really have to do a better job with this. And I think that if I'm Adam Silver, I lock both of those men, Iger and Pitaro, in a closet after the NBA Finals and demand that they treat my league much better over the next 11 seasons because they're going to be the ones that'll be broadcasting the finals.
Absolutely, yeah. Game 2 happens tonight, so we'll see if the the level of production picks up eventually, and then we'll see. Hopefully the series, which becomes a little more interesting now that Indy won the game 1. I'm very curious to see how OKC regroups after blowing a double-digit lead like they've done already in the playoffs. Now finals, this is a different animal. You really have to come out firing in game 2, or this series now all of a sudden could suddenly change the total complexity and the vibes of the finals. And when now that you find yourself in an 0-2 hole, that might be a huge hole for OKC to overcome, even as great, talented, as deep as they are. You don't want to be messing around. You really need to start learning to finish putting away opponents.
Right.
Because Indy's been so many of these types of games already this year. They had game one against the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals, which Halliburton win it, with that, crazy shot. But Knicks had opportunities to finish them off many, many times, with the lead that they've had. So, maybe OKC needs to, have a good hard look at themselves in the mirror and learn to finish tonight, and then hopefully make this finals much more interesting, because I think this is a series that I'm very invested and I'm interested in watching. I'm not one of those Fox Sports Jason McIntyre making some crazy confessions that he's not interested in watching the finals because he doesn't like the team, the market, or even the players themselves. I'm very interested in this, and I say that as a Bulls fan because the Bulls haven't given me anything close to being competitive or interested, and I'm down to watching a very good basketball game regardless of who the team is, and maybe I'm just an outlier in the eyes of ESPN or NBA Commissioner Adam Silver. So I'm very curious to see what holds, which happens in about maybe 20 minutes or so. All right, Ken, let's move on to the next stuff. Oh, go ahead. I'll let you finish this one.
Yeah, I think that also, too, that one thing about Oklahoma City is that they weren't really playing in many close games. They're blowing out their opponents. And then they got tight when they saw that Indiana said, okay, we're down by 15. First of all, as you mentioned, they had a chance to really put this game away, game one, on Thursday night, and didn't do it. And then second of all, when you have an opportunity to take the ball away from the best player, the most clutch player that we've seen in the last 10 years in Tyrese Halliburton, you prevent him from getting the ball. And then also, he's going to – what ball – where is he going to go, Steven? He's going to go right. You have to prevent – there's all many things like Oklahoma City did wrong in that game. First of all, not putting them away, as you mentioned. Second of all, allowing Tyrese Halliburton to get the ball in his hand in the final minute, in the final seconds, and then allow him to drift right to a place where he's comfortable with and making that shot. You have to be able, first of all, prevent him from getting the ball. All right, if he's going to get the ball, make him go left because he can't shoot from his left hand, and then make him get rid of the ball because you can't allow the best player to beat you, but yet they did that. So anyway, that's all I want to say, Steven. I mean, if they don't do that tonight, they're going to go down 0-2 and go back to Indianapolis where the Pacers can close out the series. And who would have thought that? But I think Oklahoma will win tonight. I honestly think that OKC will win tonight. I think they got the message, and I think they're gonna if they're up by 15 tonight, they're gonna make sure they go up by 30 because they can't allow this to happen again.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Earlier today, Portugal win the UEFA Nations League finals over Spain in a penalty shootout, 2-2, and then 5-3 in the aggregate. As you can see here in the middle, 40-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo, who now plays in the Saudi Arabia, won another title. And again, this conversation goes back to what we've been discussing about the current sad state of the U.S. soccer and the United States men's national team. Yesterday, U.S. faced Turkey, which is a somewhat decent opponent in a deep European, countries. They took a 1-0 lead, less than a minute in on a massive shot by Jack McGlynn. And then from the rest of the game, 95 minutes or so, the U.S. did absolutely nothing. Johnny Cardozo, a Brazilian-American who chose to be a U.S. citizen to represent the U.S., with a terrible, terrible back pass that hit one of the U.S. defenders and went into the goal. And then the second goal, a few minutes later, the U.S. was just all over the place in front of the goalkeeper, Matt Freese, and just basically couldn't defend at all. I put that on Miles Robinson, the U.S. defender, more so. U.S. lose 2-1. And again, the question of the commitment of representing your own country comes into question, because at least I griped about the U.S. Men's national team missing Christian Pulisic, Timothy Weah, Yunus Musa, and Weston McKennie. The funny thing is, all four of these players play for Serie A in Italy, and yet both Weston McKennie and Timothy Weah, who plays for Juventus, will be playing in the Club World Cup, which takes place later this month here in America. And yet they don't even have the decency to represent the United States with the Gold Cup, which, again, with the World Cup about a year from now, with a new manager in place, still, trying to find the best, team and the best formations, etc. It's almost ridiculous and laughable that, the lack of commitment from some of these U.S. players are that we still have to talk about. This is Landon Donovan and Alexei Lalas after the game of the shootout. They were talking about, the USMNT and the Gold Cup. Here we go. Oh, sorry.
I said this in the beginning of the show. This is what it means to represent your country.
Correct.
This is what it means. And if you don't want to take this as a professional soccer player and someone who gets the opportunity to wear that jersey and take it seriously and responsibly, then don't come in. This is what it means. He's 40 years old. He's played a long-ass season. He's tired. He's out there grinding, hurt himself in the process. And I can't help but think about some of our guys who are on vacation right now, not wanting to play in the Gold Cup. This is what it's pissing me off.
This is what
Pochettino's talking about.
Yeah, this is a culture. This is what it means to people. This is what you live for, you train for. This is what you want. I mean, look at that.
I mean, just look at the 40-year-old.
Yeah, absolutely. That was big, and to see, we have to be careful because UEFA is very, very, very finicky about that. So we got to be careful. We just got another copyright strike on our channel, so we have to be careful. So anyway, in regards to that, I totally agree with Landon Donovan. Landon Donovan has not done a very good job on Fox, but today he made that great point, Stephen. That was a great point by him about the fact that players not play, the U.S. players and Christian Pulisic, he was pointing them out. He didn't name them, but he didn't have to because we know about Christian Pulisic.
We know.
Yeah, and the fact is that there were post-game interviews on the UEFA Nations League broadcast by Fox. They asked the Portuguese, why do they do that? And they said, because I want to play for my country. I am so proud. We all wanted to play for our country today, and we all and you saw what it meant to them, Stephen. You saw what it meant to them, especially after that winning kick in the penalty kick, what it meant. And you saw, and again, let me just show that picture. You see in the middle there, Cristiano Ronaldo, and you see everybody so proud to have that medal around their neck and to do the trophy and the trophy lift. And they not only that, they defeated Spain, which is their neighboring country and a country that they've felt to be the smaller brother to for so many years. They beat Spain in an international competition in Europe. I mean, the only thing that would have been bigger if they beat them in the UEFA Euro, and of course Portugal did win in the Euros back in 2006. But it was a big thing, and I was just very impressed by to see how Portugal played in this game, how Spain played in this game, how Germany played in the semifinals, how France played in the semifinals. Mbappe played in the semifinals. Is Christian Pulisic going to be playing in a Gold Cup, which is not considered to be the same type of competition? But still, you know what Roberto Martinez, the coach of Portugal, said? I want to see where we are 1 year away. We have to prepare for the World Cup. We need to see our chemistry. And unfortunately, Mario Pochettino is not going to be able to see that with his players with the Gold Cup because they want to go on vacation. That's a disgrace, Stephen. Absolute disgrace.
And I will say that, looking at that photo that you just showed earlier, everybody's so happy around, Cristiano Ronaldo. We know Cristiano Ronaldo, and I will mention his rival, Lionel Messi. they're talented players by their own right. But the thing is, in terms of leadership, there are different types of leaders. We get that. The fact, Cristiano Ronaldo still kicking and playing for their country even at 40 or 41 next year, that inspires a lot of the players that they're playing, right? Yeah. Some of these guys are maybe 15, 20 years younger, or even half of their age, and they grew up watching this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'll put it back.
Same with Lionel Messi. He's 37, 38 years old, and he'll be 39 by the time, if he is still healthy and able to play for Argentina in the next World Cup. Some of the guys, they grew up and they played together for almost a decade, or even longer than that, if you count the representing the U17 or U20s, or even the youth system, in such capacities. They played together for 15, 20 years. To me, Christian Pulisic is talented. As talented as he is, you need to have somebody who demands accountability and inspire. That's not Christian Pulisic. I'm sorry. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. Christian Pulisic is probably the most unauthentic and probably the most overrated athlete in this country today. Maybe even more over Kevin Durant, LeBron James, people that everybody likes to pick on, because that's the only sports that Americans really care about these days. But, Christian Pulisic, for him to miss, this tournament, it proves that he just doesn't have it. He just doesn't elevate people. Mm-hmm. He's like the huge weight on people's shoulder or their ankle. He just drags down people, unfortunately. And for the others who are not participating for whatever their reasons, is even more pathetic. And I know that Landon Donovan isn't probably the most maybe the good guy to be saying something about the commitment and everything about him, because he once missed the soccer for over a year and griped about missing the World Cup when Jurgen Klinsmann was the national team manager back in 2014, and there was a lot of high drama involved in that. But yeah, I'll give Donovan a pass here to criticize, because people like Christian Pulisic has absolutely done nothing in their performance on the national team to be given the benefit of the doubt. So yesterday, I'm very curious to see that. When Tyler Adams came in the second half, things got a little bit more calmer for the United States. It's not about talent versus the leadership. In my opinion, I want somebody who has strong leadership. Maybe Adams isn't as talented as Christian Pulisic, but you can tell that Adams has proven that, he is a leader. He has that leadership quality. He can command attention and demand excellence from his people versus Christian Pulisic. So I hope that at least Pochettino moving forward understands that Christian Pulisic is not the leader. And I don't want I don't want Pochettino pandering to, Pulisic and calling him, earlier this week that he is the Messi of, U.S. soccer or whatever. Stop that, please.
He's not.
That is enough. Yeah, I know. I want Pochettino to stop pandering to people like Christian Pulisic and start showing some, more accountability and demand more excellence and, pride from players. It's sad that you have to ask these types of stuff from American players, but, that's where we are, unfortunately, Ken.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Stephen. I mean, we talked about it last week, but I think it really hits home today. And I show that picture again. Look at the joy of them winning. This is just before Cristiano Ronaldo did the trophy lift. Look at them. I want Christian Pulisic to. He's not going to watch this, but look at that. I want Christian Pulisic to see the pride of the players of Portugal, and also look at the people, the Spanish players like Lamine Yamal. He didn't play a very good game. He was so disappointed by his performance. He said, "I let the country down." I don't think Christian Pulisic knows that type of pride. He would not say he let the country
No.
down. He is letting the country down by his refusal to play in the Gold Cup. Look at, Cristiano Ronaldo, he scored the tying goal. He scored the tying goal before he got hurt, and had to be taken out of the game. Lamine Yamal had to be taken out in the second half, in the second extra period, so he had no say in the game. But look at the players of the Portuguese side, and again, Roberto Martinez said, "I needed to use this game to see what type of team I had." He said that before going into this tournament. He now knows what type of team he has, and I think he feels confident going into next year. Unfortunately, Mario Pochettino has no idea what his team is going to be like for next season, and they're hosting the World Cup, Steven. They have to host the World Cup. Pochettino has no idea what his team is going to be like. The Spanish team knows what this team is like. Germany, they know. France, they know. They know that Mbappe is going to be there because Mbappe played a very good Nations League tournament. Unfortunately, with the goal, Mexico is going to know because all of their players are going to be there and be ready for the World Cup because they're going to be playing in it. Steven, I throw my hands up. We were very angry when we had Greg Berhalter as the coach. There's rumors for Pochettino. Pochettino is going to go back to Tottenham Hotspur. I wouldn't be after this summer. I wouldn't blame him if he said, "I'm going to go back to Tottenham Hotspur because I'm so fed up of what I'm seeing with U.S. soccer." I wouldn't blame him if Tottenham said, "Okay, we're going to give you a lot of money and you can come back to Tottenham and you don't have any more headaches with U.S. soccer." I wouldn't blame him if he decided to do that.
Well, to be fair, in the summer, that's when Premier League starts. So they need to make that decision sooner rather than later. And right now, the rumor is Thomas Frank of Brentford, a small-sized team who have been in the main fixture in the mid-level team on, ultra-competitive Premier League is favored to be that manager. So obviously, his goal of maybe going to Tottenham is pretty much dead in the water at this point. But again, this is all going to how U.S. Soccer Federation bungled everything. They should have moved on from Berhalter, knowing that we talked about this extensively, Ken, about his allegations of domestic violence, and then his treatment with Gio Reyna, star player Gio Reyna, led to him being, as a repercussion, not playing at all under Berhalter during the World Cup, etc. And then we waited too long to finally move on from him when we should have done it. And right now, Pochettino is scrambling to figure it out, what he has in the current team, which is heavily slanted towards Major League Soccer, which hasn't really been producing that much of a top level quality players on the field right now, to be honest. And it's not looking good right now. And you can blame Pochettino all we want, and he does deserve a lot of blame, but
sure,
it's all point towards the soccer federation, for their lack of accountability and then their lack of the indecisiveness that led to this. When we should have taken the, this moment more and more seriously, but U.S. Soccer Federation decided to chase money and care about the corporate sponsor or make more money, blah blah blah. It's unfortunate that with less than a year, there is nothing good about the U.S. Soccer Federation as well as the men's national team that makes you and I very, very hopeful for World Cup in 2026. All right, Ken, we've come to the last word segment, and if you have anything that you want to add as the the final word, please go ahead.
All right. Well, I did wrestling last week, so I'll avoid doing wrestling, even though R-Truth did make an appearance and looks like his he was yesterday. I'll avoid that. I do want to mention about this we talked about the NHL earlier. I'll talk about it again on today. Brad Marchand, who is a former Boston Bruin, made the goal to tie the series in overtime on Friday night. Marchand continues to defy time. I look at the older players in the in this NHL Stanley Cup series final. Corey Perry is 40 years old. Brad Marchand is 36 years old. They continue to defy time. They continue to be leaders. We also talked about Cristiano Ronaldo. These older players continue to make influence and be leaders on their team. They show by example. Corey Perry doesn't show any sign of trying to leave. He's never said that this is going to be his final season. He scored the tying goal in the game 2 against Edmonton on a Friday night that led it to a double overtime. It was Marchand who scored 2 goals, including the game winner on Friday night. And as you mentioned, Cristiano Ronaldo is 40 years old. These men continue to defy time. And also Lionel Messi, they continue to play well into their 30s, and now, and especially with Corey Perry, into his 40s, and Ronaldo as well. We can all talk about the conditioning. We can all talk about the improved technology, but it just goes to show that the spirit of these men, they want to continue to play. They want to lead by example. They continue to inspire the younger generation. It's what I love to see. It's one of the great things that we love about sports, Stephen. We always used to think when you were in your 30s and you were in your in your mid 30s, it was time to retire. That's not the case. Tom Brady showed that he was playing into 45. So it goes to show that nowadays is that the conditioning and also the way the players can play, they can play well into their 40s and continue to be productive. I think it's a great thing to see, and I think it's very inspirational. And it continues. That's one of the things that inspired me and made me enjoy sports this week.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I would like to talk about is the embarrassment last night involving boxing. Keyshawn Davis, who was slated to fight in his hometown of Norfolk, Virginia. It was supposed to be on ESPN's main event, which also featured his brother Keon. Unfortunately, Keyshawn Davis really embarrassed, put a massive black eye to the boxing, sports that the sports that is already getting a lot of bad rap anyway because of mostly related to fight promoters, stealing money historically, and the fighters ducking, etc. But Keyshawn Davis missed the weight by 4 pounds. Against his opponent, De Los Santos, who was actually lost a lot of weight. He was actually missing 2 years of his fight to prepare himself for this fight. And his excuse is that, I was going to move up the weight after this fight, so it doesn't matter, which is a total tone deaf. And then you had fans who paid a lot of money to see their hometown hero,
in Virginia, right?
Turned out right in Virginia, Norfolk, demanded refunds, and the funny thing is, Michael Vick, Allen Iverson, who is from the Tobacco Roads, Norfolk, that area, was also actually in attendance to watch him, and I also read that Shaquille O'Neal was also going to be in attendance watching this fight. He literally embarrassed himself with his actions, and if that wasn't bad enough for his unprofessionalism, there was a video that surfaced where he was actually involved in a fight, fight involving
this type of here. The stock just
now. This is a fight that involves Keyshawn and Keon Davis going after Nasir Albright, the fighter that beat, I believe, one of his brothers. And the guy was just hanging around, eating and munching, watching the fight, in which he couldn't convince De Los Santos to take the fight, even though he's stripped of the title and the purses he's getting will be covered 100%, et cetera, et cetera. And yet De Los Santos made his statement, which is good for him, say, I'm not fighting a guy who's 4 pounds over him, because we saw something similar happen with Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia, who was actually a little bigger. Unfortunately, afterwards, there was a drug testing that came back positive, and the fight was actually, became a no contest. And then you have a guy like this who's a very bright young champion, who was a 2020 Olympian himself too, and his brother acting wildly and assaulting a boxer in which one of his brother was beaten soundly in a unanimous decision, 10 rounds. And then for a guy to act like this is almost sickening to me. I hope that Top Rank takes a harder stance against these brothers. I know they released an apology in a written statement, which I don't think is conducive or does anything to change the minds of most boxing fans who were sick of a boxer like Keyshawn Davis, who doesn't take his own craft very, very seriously. And that just made me really, really sad, because on the other hand, in Japan, we saw Junto Nakatani beat his opponent Nishida in a slugfest, which helped set up Naoya Inoue versus Junto Nakatani in a fight that every boxing fan in the world is drooling and now expects to happen after a massive win by Nakatani in Tokyo today, Japan time. So, I don't know if you care much about boxing, Ken, but I do find that the accountability. Yeah, we talked about the accountability coming from the umps earlier today with the baseball game I attended and the ABS system. But the athletes themselves, whether you're male or female, they need to be called out for something like this as well.
Yeah, I mean, I did hear about the situation, Stephen, where what was ridiculous about Davis losing his missing weight. I heard he was sent home, but I guess he wasn't sent home in regards to that video that you showed. He and his brother were fighting the other boxer behind that. That's just really bad behavior. And first of all, to be overweight when you have a major fight is just inexcusable. We've seen that fighters have been maybe 1 pound overweight, and then they have to go back and sweat it off to lose it. But to be 4 pounds overweight is just, what was he doing? That's just unbelievable.
You're having your whole fight in your hometown. How bad is that? How bad does that make your entire family in a state that was rooting and helping you set up?
Right. Also, wanted to let you know, we talked about it earlier, but just now, we can say that that you can see there, the NBA has put the Larry O'Brien Trophy on the floor at the Paycom Center tonight. So it's good that they heard the fans.
It's a little smaller compared to the previous ones.
Right, but at least it's there. So I just wanted to let you know before we go off the air. So anyway, so that's those are our final words, and we're very happy that 107 people of you, 107 of viewers stayed with us to watch our show tonight, and we really appreciate it.
Okay, and I apologize. Do you want to save the French Open coverage and then Coco Gauff?
All right, let's quickly talk about it. Let's quickly talk about it. Of course, Coco Gauff won yesterday over Sabalenka, winning the first American to win the French Open in quite some time. And also today's great match between Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz.
Yannick Sinner.
So it was a fantastic match. TNT did a very good job. My only wish is that to stop depending on John McEnroe. He has been on TV for way too long. I think they should start using Jim Courier as the main announcer, as the main analyst. He's absolutely fantastic. TNT did also use Lindsay Davenport as well. I think this is something that we need to go into the next generation of tennis analysts, and John McEnroe I think no longer cuts it. He's just way too old. He's been too. I know he still plays tennis, and I know he still is well liked by a lot of old players. But I think right now, I think, to be honest with you, it's time to move on from him and bring in Jim Courier as the main analyst. He does a fantastic job on the Australian Open for 9 Network. He also has worked for Tennis Channel. So I think that they should be start used. But overall, I thought TNT's channel coverage was very good. If they wanted to get in, and then I know the rights for Wimbledon and the U.S. Open are locked with ESPN, but it was very refreshing not to hear the narratives from the ESPN in regards to their coverage, because that's something that has slipped into narratives by ESPN. We talked about this before. It has been very part of their coverage. TNT just said, let's just focus on the action, and I really appreciated that.
What do you think of the Sabalenka's sour grape comments?
Well, she should have done the press conference. Again, I don't know what this is. I mean, golf and tennis, it's been an increasing amount, like Colin Morikawa and Rory McIlroy, and again, Sabalenka refusing to do a press conference. It should be required. I mean, I don't know why they just go. First of all, the PGA Tour should make it mandatory for players to do a press conference. They do it in the majors. They just don't do it in the regular. They don't, because the players hold all of the power in the PGA. The PGA can't find them. They can't find the players to not do the press conferences. As far as Sabalenka is concerned, she's from Belarus.
That sour grapes comment about losing to Coco Gauff was really an embarrassment. I don't know if she decided to do that on purpose or just for the good measure, so that she doesn't have to be.
It could have been the heat of the moment. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt, but still not a very classy comment to say.
Yeah.
I know that
It's
a lot of
pathetic.
times when you lose, you're not in the best of minds. But still, you shouldn't be saying that about your opponent, especially someone who has beaten you and been very classy to you right after the match. So unnecessary.
All right, thank you, Ken. I appreciate your extended comments on the French Open, the coverage, and the Sabalenka comments. Tomorrow night, I'm doing a Cubs team live stream with previous guest Alex Pat from the cubbycrib.com. 8 I believe. I don't know the time yet, but we're definitely looking at 8-7 Central. I will post it on my X for the official notifications. I'm also working on a couple of other guests in the future as well. We will definitely make sure to notify the guest appearance, their time availability on our X channels moving forward. Ken, another great show. Thanks for your patience and time today. And thank you to 107 people who stuck around and watched us gripe about the umpires and the lack of accountability in sports tonight as well. Ken, I look forward to seeing you again next Sunday night, same time, and enjoy your week. And for those watching, thank you, and we hope you have a wonderful week. We'll see you next time on the Double 18 podcast live stream Sunday night. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week, and we'll be back to talk about. We may have a winner. Well, we'll see. I don't think we'll have a winner in the NBA because of the way they space things out, but we'll be certainly talking more about the NBA Finals and the NHL Stanley Cup Final next week. Have a good night, everyone. Have a good week in sport.